People have no idea how serious this is. I think some people might. Jordan Peterson probably appreciates how bad this is. When I heard that they were talking about this law a year ago, I said, this is a line in the sand. And in the dead of night, you know, right after they banned protesting outside of hospitals, which I think is immoral, but I think laws already covered that in any event. More laws, less justice. The dead of the night, they passed that law. Dead of the night, they passed this unanimously. But they don't have time to legislate or pass laws relating to vaccine passports and other stuff. It's an ever-invasive government.
So, hey, Alexa for Rebel News. I'm currently in Montreal with Viva Free because today we are touching a really important topic. As you know, recently the Bill 15 have passed in Quebec about the parental primacy. So what that means, it gives more power to the government on the right of the children than the natural family of the children. So, hi, Viva Free, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm very good. So, can you explain a little bit, as a lawyer, what that bill means for parents?
So, bearing in mind I'm not an expert on this particular subject, but I've been following it for the last year since they were talking about eliminating parental supremacy as the guiding principle of the Youth Protection Act. And bottom line, you know, under the old Youth Protection Act, parental supremacy was the predominant guiding factor. So you'd have the kid's interest, you'd have the parental interest, and to some extent you'd have merging those where it would be in the best interest of the kid to stay with biological family, parents. This incident that occurred in Granby where there was, I think she was a 7-year-old girl that ended up getting killed by her stepmother. They did an inquiry to see how could this have happened because apparently the abuse was known in the context of that family situation. The government, after the inquiry was called the Errant, I think it was the Errant inquiry, I may have mistaken the name, came to the conclusion that they lacked the requisite sufficient powers under the law to have removed that child from the family on the basis that the considerations of parental supremacy were those which were taken into consideration that resulted in the kids staying within that abusive family situation and ended up getting killed. So they've amended the Youth Protection Act to eliminate parental supremacy, and now the guiding factor, the overriding guiding principle is the best interest of the child, which, you know, in theory it sounds totally logical. I would have argued once upon a time that parental supremacy is nothing more than, you know, looking after the best interest of the child regardless. But they've eliminated parental supremacy, and now effectively the government, the administrative state, the administrative tribunals, once they get involved, are going to be the ones to determine what's in the best interest of the child. And the question is, where is this all going to go? And the bigger question is, what problem did this actually solve for which there were not already tools in place to address?
So we know that as well during the pandemic, with the vaccination, that's began as well to be something because they wanted to prioritize the parent that wanted the vaccination for their children and wanted the best for the children. And the parents who were against it lost the right on their own children. Yeah. On which kind of, can you just maybe put a painting of a situation that a parent can lose the right on children?
Like, we can only imagine for now. The rationale for the law is that apparently, you know, the state lacked the resources or the legislative authority to remove a child from an abusive context if that abusive circumstance surroundings were family. In the Granby case, I'm not even sure how that happened because it was a stepmother and not a biological mother who had custody or watch over the kid when she was killed. So, you know, in theory, they're going to say, we needed this to remove children from abusive circumstances where we couldn't before. I'm not sure that that's actually the case. I think they had the tools in place. How could this possibly be abused, misused? In the context of the pandemic, we've seen parents lose visitation rights over their kids. On the one hand, because the parent refused to get vaccinated, and they said, one judge said, you know, this poses a risk to the child who can't get vaccinated or who's not yet vaccinated. A father lost visitation rights. We've seen the courts basically authorize one parent saying, I want my kid to get vaccinated, even if the other parent doesn't, in the best interest of the child. In British Columbia, we've seen parents losing custody rights when a child wants to transition. One parent says okay, the other parent says no, and it goes to court. So we've seen situations in which the courts have intervened in the, you know, I'll put it in quotes, the best interest of the child to deprive one parent of visitation rights or deprive one parent of certain parental supremacy, parental rights. We can easily imagine that it's not going to be long before it's not going to be in the context of heated divorces, but rather in the context of a child saying, I want this, Parents both say no, get the DPJ involved or the Youth Protection Services, and then they say, well, we've determined it's in the best interest of the child, notwithstanding parental opposition. Which cases could that be? Can easily envision vaccination. A child who, I won't say is indoctrinated, but is in an environment where, everyone around them is getting vaccinated, may not understand their parents' desires for the child not to get vaccinated, may not understand their own medical conditions, says, I want to get vaccinated. Parents say no, kid runs to the government, runs to the police. My parents are doing something that's putting me in danger. You can see the government easily getting involved there, especially under this new amendment, removal of parental supremacy from the law. It'll apply equally to transition situations. Right now, we've seen it where the kid wants something and the parents are fighting, court sides with one parent over the other. It's not hard to imagine, and it will happen sooner than later. A 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 13-year-old says, I want puberty blockers. I want to transition. The parents say, no, we're your parents. We know what's best for you, even if you don't understand that right now. Kid runs to court, says it's abuse. I'm going to harm myself. Court gets involved and says, notwithstanding parental supremacy, parental decisions of what they think and believe is in the best interest of their kid, we know better. We're going to get there. It's just a matter of time.
So what is the worst consequences or danger with that law?
It's effectively that in my, maybe it's a neurotic or a hyperbolic imagination, a kid can say, my parents are abusing me for a decision they have made or a refusal that they have made. They run to the authorities. You get the government involved, and once the government gets their hooks involved, they're never getting out. And they're going to come in and say, we're going to assess the situation. Does this 12-year-old have the wherewithal? Does this child's interest of what they think is in their best interest trump, in our assessment, what the parents want? And it's not a hard leap. We're going to get there. So you can envision it easily. A kid says, I want a medical treatment. I want X, Y, and Z. Parents say, no, wait until you're older. And then the kid runs to the authorities. Once the government's in, the government will say, well, now we make the decision. What's in the child's best interest in our minds, in the view of our experts? Some experts might be highly, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word when you are activist experts? Sorry. Some of them might arguably be activist experts or experts in the industry who only see that as the solution. And so you're going to get government doctors, government agencies coming in and saying, we think this is in the child's best interest, notwithstanding parental objections. And those are the two big examples I can think of right now.
Do you think that other province will probably take the same path than Quebec and try to pass a law that is similar for their province?
I would not be surprised if Ontario does it. Ontario's well ahead of the curve when it comes to this type of legislation. British Columbia is already there to some extent. But yeah, there would be no reason why not to. In their mind, in the mind of the government, this is just, it's clarifying an ambiguity in the law. My view, and someone can please correct me if I'm wrong, the law in Quebec never lacked any resources to deal with the problems that the government says this amendment is necessary to deal with. And from what I understand of the Granby tragedy, the government knew about it. It was a known problem, and it wasn't for lack of law that it occurred. It was for lack of resources and a broken youth protection system that allowed this to happen. But it's, who was it? I think it's Marco Cicero or Tellius who said more laws, less justice. This is just another case where the government is adding laws to address a problem that did not result from an absence of law, but a broken system in and of itself. And now you've just added more laws to a broken system, and it's only going to exacerbate the problem. It's going to split. It's going to break families. It's going to empower the government. It's going to empower the administrative state, and fringe benefits to unnecessary legislation.
Well, what is happening in Quebec? So this is my last question, because we saw the Bill 21, Bill 15. I have the impression that the government of Quebec tried to have the control on their own citizens.
Look, people might compare me to other people for noticing this. And, people will call it conspiracy theorists. It might just be the objective or the perspective of the administrative state. They think they know better than the citizens. From the beginning of this pandemic, we've seen the government shut down everything to basically destroy the pillars of society: family, religion, social gatherings, how we mourn, how we celebrate. The government has replaced the family. They've sought to literally destroy family connections. You can't celebrate Christmas with your loved ones. You can't go to church. You can't pray. You can't go to school. You can't have indoor gatherings. You can't mourn. They have been destroying the pillars of what has been social norms that make humans humans for a long time and replacing it with themselves. What's the objective? In a nanny state where the administrative government thinks they know better than their citizenry, as is quite clear now. I mean, you have the government telling people how to live to the most minute detail of their lives. The government is the answer to people who have, studied history and who know better and who have had certain life experiences. You know that very rarely is the government any more of the answer than any other form of intervention. But that's where it's going. It's just in Quebec, it's been one law after the next, after one mandate, one edict after the next, of the government basically micromanaging every aspect of citizen life. And, Bill 15, that touches family rights. And now you got Bill 96, that's going to touch language rights. And it's going to be the government telling you how to live to every detail of your life. Government loves it. I don't think that people should.
Thank you very much for making everything more clear for a lot of people, not only in Quebec, but in Canada as well. So it was Viva Frey for the people who want to see what he's doing. He's doing an amazing job as a lawyer.
Know the vlog, people. People have no idea how serious this is. I think some people might. Jordan Peterson probably appreciates how bad this is. When I heard that they were talking about this law a year ago, I said, this is a line in the sand. And in the dead of night, right after they banned protesting outside of hospitals, which I think is immoral, but I think laws already covered that in any event. More laws, less justice. The dead of the night, they passed that law. Dead of the night, they passed this unanimously. But they don't have time to legislate or pass laws relating to vaccine passports and other stuff. It's an ever-invasive government.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you like what we are doing and you want to see all of our show, as you know, at Rebel News, we have private show that you need to subscribe. So if you're interested, go to rebelnews.com, subscribe for the year, and you will have access to all our shows.